What is this? Yeah.
Well, they say, what is it? And they say, did you drive this from Australia? I said, yeah, I did, but I got wet on the way. and then you open up.
Isn't Ute the thing that Joe Pesci mentioned in that movie, My Cousin Vinny?
the Utes. So I believe the
good.
Ute started when people used to go to church in Australia and they wanted to bring their sheep and their pigs, right? But the thing is, I don't know where the mother-in-law sat.
Hey, welcome to Car Guy Confessions, brought to you by ARP. I'm Jeff Smith. This is my car buddy Cam Benty and car builder Steve Strope, and we're going to tell you some stories.
All right, welcome to another episode of Car Guy Confessions with Jeff Smith, brought to you by our friends at arp-bolts.com. We couldn't do this without them.
No, they're
Cam
very
Benty. We have a very special guest star, Geoff Abadee. Is that correct?
100%.
Did I butcher it?
Jeff with a G.
Jeff with a G.
And Jeff with a J. There you go.
So before we get started, though, we
no
have
J.
to also acknowledge where we are because a little bit different
Yes.
this time around, but we're at the Petersen Museum, and they've been
I hope we
kind
can do
enough-
this all the time.
Oh boy, this would be fun.
Yes, it's
because
awesome.
it's
Yes.
really an outstanding place, and we've mentioned this before, but we'll say it again in case you hadn't seen some of these other episodes. For us, it's kind of like coming home a little bit
You bet.
because we were at the Wilshire Boulevard offices for Hot Rod and Carcraft and all
Right.
the books right down the street from the Petersen Museum here. And Mr. Petersen started this museum.
Working for that guy.
Working for the man.
Yeah.
And really this it's a little bit of a homecoming because I don't live in LA anymore, so this has really been a lot of fun already. And so
Terry Cargis, the executive director, was mentioning this shot. And tell me if this is the same story you heard, that this whole shot with him on the magazines was done just before a major rainstorm occurred.
Yeah.
Is that true?
So yes.
Okay.
So the story I heard, and I'm pretty sure this is true.
Who told you
is,
the story?
DeLevo.
Well, that'd be a pretty good
he
source.
was shooting the photos. So
Bob DeLevo was the
and
photo director, photo VP of Petersen
for
forever.
decades.
Yes, he's like number
and
5
And they were
employee.
celebrating the 20th anniversary, I believe,
Is that
20
what
or
it was?
25th. And so they decided to lay all these magazines out on the driveway of the building,
Yes.
which was ridiculously narrow. It's right on Sunset Boulevard. And so then he was going to get up on the wall and shoot down
Yes.
on this deal. And so it was like, and they're having to get all the magazines out there and laid down,
Yes.
then very carefully walk out. Mr. Petersen had to walk out there, kneel down, shoot the photos, and then
Yes. Then it rained.
rain
Then
came.
it rained. So look at
This is actually a great place. I worked here as a docent
Did you?
for about 7 years.
really?
Really?
And
When it first opened?
no, I'm not that old.
Okay.
Right, but I appreciate
No,
it.
no, you're talking about the museum.
So the museum,
Yes.
this particular museum has had a reface over the last few years.
Right.
And it was such an icon when I came here, and I actually had to do a 6-week course.
Okay.
And I felt like I was back at
on
school.
what?
Really?
On what? On the history?
So what we had to do is the original museum was all about Los Angeles.
Yes.
Right.
They were talking
right.
about how the sidewalks developed and how the strip malls developed, and we had to learn that, and then we had to take on small tours.
Okay, right.
And it was the 3 levels, of course, and of course upstairs was more for it was a Hot Wheels with the kids
Interesting.
and stuff like that.
I think I could pass that.
And it was a great bunch of people. I was mentored by a gentleman who's now he's about 88,
Okay.
and I think he's probably still here, probably for about 20-something years.
Wow.
And then I was a mentor to somebody that was about 20 years my senior, because
Really?
I'd had so much experience. And one of the things that I liked to do was the kids coming in here, the school kids.
Yeah.
But I had one opportunity which was very, very rare, the blind. And we would give them special gloves, and there were certain cars they could feel.
Wow.
Like the
'Cause
89.
That'd be tough.
It was so beautiful because we brought in an 89. We had the 89 Batmobile.
Okay.
And they could feel the contours of the tail.
Right,
And
right.
this
That's
is
a cool
kids
thing.
that probably had never seen before.
Sure.
So I would always put my hand up when the deaf and the blind would come.
Okay.
Because it was good for me, and I just loved doing that.
Okay.
And then of course it was closed down for a few years.
Right.
And they did this incredible reface.
Mm-hmm.
And look, I've been to car museums globally. This is up there. This
Really?
is just a
Really?
phenomenal. And Terry and the staff
so when
is
you
fantastic.
when you live here, you don't necessarily think of it that way, and so you have to really have experienced the rest of the world to see, hey, this really is pretty nice.
Okay.
Well, what happened was, as a docent, we were allowed to bring in, family and stuff like that. And I would always have people call me from Australia and say, "I'm coming in. Can you take us for a tour?" And
Yeah.
I would take, sort of
Nice.
private tours. And it was amazing because obviously we have a lot of cars here that you would never see in Australia.
Wait a minute. You're not from Des Moines?
I actually am. I'm actually from south of Des Moines,
South of Des Moines, yes.
about
Jeff with
7,500
a G.
miles.
7,500
Jeff,
miles.
Jeff with a G. Geoff Abadee is, Jeff is from, are you from Sydney?
I'm from Sydney, Australia. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. You can tell. Could you tell?
No,
I don't
never
know.
said-
Did
I'm
the,
shocked, frankly.
did the accent give it away? It gives it away every time.
It's the
People
eyebrows.
always say to me, "Do you have an accent?" I'd say, "But so do you."
Yeah, so do you. Yeah, exactly. So tell me something. Coming from Australia, I've always heard this, that the Aussies and the Kiwis don't get along.
I thought you were going to do the toilet bowl thing.
Why is that? Is there a single event that happened?
No,
that
it's a
pissed
tongue in
them off?
cheek. It's a tongue in cheek.
It-
We get on very well with the New Zealanders because when I grew up, you didn't need a passport to go to New Zealand.
Okay.
And the New Zealanders didn't need a passport to come to Australia.
Okay.
So it's only 2 hours away.
Okay.
So it's a hop, skip, and jump from say Sydney.
Not by boat.
And a lot of New Zealanders actually moved to Australia for jobs.
Okay.
We don't sort of really get on well with the English.
Well,
But there's a reason for that.
There is a very
Yeah.
good
The reason for that is that
How did they
around the
populate?
late 1700s, when they took all the convicts to Australia,
Yeah,
they
that's-
said, "Oh my goodness, this place is so good. We should have left the convicts in England. We should have moved here."
Well, you were talking before we went on that your father used to go to Australia when he was in the service.
My dad was in the Marine Corps, and he was a pilot and did 2 tours in Nam, and he never went beyond this. But what he said was, because I was at Street Machine Nationals one time, met a couple of Aussies, and he says, "Oh, Australia's great, fantastic," So
We're the biggest ally to the United States.
Yes.
During a lot of people don't know this, but when JFK, when he was in the military, his
he was in the Navy.
Right.
PT 109
PT 109,
was
yep.
Right.
was taken down, and he was waiting in the water. An Aussie saved him.
Really?
There.
Yeah.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
So
All right.
our relationship with the United States, it's very funny. We have such a close relationship with the US, probably, and we're quite far away, right?
Yeah.
But we have a better relationship with the US than we would say with the UK. And it actually trickles in, funny enough, into the car business.
Okay.
Well, there's a lot of crossover.
There's a
Tremendous amount.
yeah, and you'll see, we've got a very small population in Australia. There's more people
It's like
close
15,
to California.
15, 20 million?
No, it's closer to 30, but California, that's what California is.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But they are die-hard car fans.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Right.
I've heard that.
I mean, they're ridiculously, car fans. And when they come here and they see, say, a General Motors car, and they go, "Oh, we got the Holden."
Holden.
Yes.
Yeah,
Right.
we got the Holden. People go, "What's the Holden?" Well, it's a General Motors car, right? But ours are different, right? Or the Falcon, but
Yeah.
the real Falcon, the muscle car Falcon.
Yeah.
Like the Mad Max,
The Mad Max.
which was what was the name of that?
XB, the XB, and that was, I think that put Australia on the map, and also the car, because a lot of people want to make the kits and stuff like
Yes.
that.
Yeah, when that movie came out, we got calls from people going, "How do I build a blower where I could flip the switch and the blower starts spinning?" And I go, "You can't do that, not easily."
Well, one of the guys that was on that movie actually lives here, and he and I did we did a documentary on. We haven't released it yet, but it's Australian muscle cars versus US muscle cars.
Okay, that sounds like fun.
So we filmed here in the US, and then we went to Australia. We filmed in Brisbane, which is north of Sydney, Sydney,
Been
and then
there,
Melbourne. And we interviewed all these different people. And you'd be surprised, even though these people had Australian cars, you will see, Chargers in their garage and all these, American cars that they had like They want their Aussie cars,
Okay.
but they want the equivalent of what it was here in the United States.
Yeah.
And we had the Valiant. The Valiant was the
Yes.
basically the Valiant was this 7-liter thing, and it was really the cheap
Wow.
version. But of course now it's such a collectible.
Sure.
Weren't they lighter?
7
Were
liter?
they lighter? Were they lighter than the cars that we had here or not?
They were lighter. The only problem we had in Australia is a rust.
Okay.
Yeah.
The rust was really bad. The cars came out, and
And
even
the steering wheel.
well, you know what was funny was the foreign cars like the Alphas.
Yeah.
They would sit on the wharf waiting for compliance, and then 6 months later, the rust on the bottom of the doors.
Yes. Yes.
Right, because there was no seals, and so
Right.
That's sea air.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
the rust
eat 'em
cost
right up.
nothing.
Yeah.
It cost nothing.
Yeah.
Right, it was part of the deal. But
Extra charger.
yeah, but Australian cars are really. They're very similar. I mean, we had
They had Clevelands and small blocks.
we had
Yeah.
the Clevelands,
Right.
Yep.
We had Windsors, and it's such an icon, motor when you think about it. They brought out this car in Australia. It was called the I forget the name of the car, but it was a Leyland. Remember Leyland?
Leland,
Yes, sure.
Yeah, and we had Leyland in Australia. It was called the P76.
Okay.
And this thing had a trunk that you could have 12 parties in and invite friends. This thing was absolutely
Massive.
huge. The car was absolutely crap. But what was good, right, is if you took the engine out, the Leyland engine in, and you put in a Ford or GM motor,
Yeah.
and then the car was perfect.
Now you had a
It
rocket
was like
ship,
the
yeah.
Stag. Remember the old Stag?
Yes, I do.
The little
The Triumph?
convertible.
Yeah, it was
the
a
Triumph
Triumph.
Stag. You
Yeah.
take that little V8 out, and you put like a small block in there. You got because the car
Yeah.
was good looking.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a good looking car.
There were
Yeah.
some really nice looking cars from Australia. We talk about the Holden. We talk the one that Americans will probably remember is the GTO from 2004 to 6,
Yes.
which was basically
Which was a
Holden.
Monaro. That was the Monaro.
Monaro,
Yeah.
that's
Which
right.
is,
which is a Camaro.
I have a 2012 Holden Maloo, which is an HSV, which is Holden specialty vehicle. So it's
Okay.
like the zooped up, some extra body panels and some cosmetic stuff. And literally, the Australians, I don't know if you know that the Australians were the ones that invented the Ute. But some
Okay.
Americans call it the UTE.
Well, there
which is a
actually is a body style that was the Ute because I drove GM brought one out here and I got a chance to drive it.
I have one
it's
here.
It's a rocket. It was
I have
fun.
one here,
Yeah.
which has got the LS motor in.
Yeah, this one had an LS in it. Yeah.
And I take it to car shows. And what the funny thing is about when I take it to the car shows, there'll be Bugattis, there'll be Lamborghinis, there'll be Ferraris, and I roll up in this, and the colour is poison ivy. That's actually on the VIN. Poison ivy.
Poison
I
ivy.
roll up there in a 6-speed manual, and we pull up there, and it's like,
What is this? Yeah.
Well, they say, what is it? And they say, did you drive this from Australia? I said, yeah, I did, but I got wet on the way. and then you open up
Isn't Ute the thing that Joe Pesci mentioned in that movie, My Cousin Vinny?
the Ute.
Utes.
So I believe the Ute started when people used to go to church in Australia and they wanted to bring their sheep and their pigs, right? But the thing is, I don't know where the mother-in-law sat in that whole thing.
Hey, we'd like to thank our sponsor, ARP-bolts.com. We got a fantastic little backdrop here. They make an outstanding series of bolts, almost anything you would need for engines, chassis, things like that. In fact, we were at lunch today, and a guy asked you about the bolt on the back of your shirt, and I said, well, it's really about a head bolt. They neck the stem down of the bolt on a short, small block Chevy head bolt, so the clamp load is even across 3 different head bolt lengths on a small block Chevy. And, so that's the kind of technology that you get out of ARP. And we've all got stories on all that stuff.
For a translation of what he said, call ARPbolts.com.
But the message is that you can't get any better than that.
No, you cannot.
There you go.
Nope.
Excellent.
And then just check them out at arp-bolts.com. We'd like to thank our friends at InTheGarageMedia.com. They have 3 fantastic magazines. They've got Classic Truck Performance, they have Modern Rotting, and my favorite, All Chevy Performance with Nick, my buddy Nick,
Oh,
is
you're
the
so
editor.
biased.
So
Correct.
yes, of course.
Yes.
But they're doing print media, which
Yes.
is of course our favorite. So
Tangible
color and
magazine.
everything.
in color and everything, and you can get your car on the cover of one of those books, which is
Right.
a fun
that's a
deal.
lot.
Great
Yeah.
tech.
Great
Written
tech.
by you and
not
others
always
that are
written by me, but
famous
yeah.
people.
Yeah.
Not always written by me.
That's right.
Just
So
pick it up
check
and
them
read
out
it.
at inthegaragemedia.com, and they're our friends, and they will thank you. So how'd you get here from Australia?
A boat.
Okay.
No, I was.
Shame on me for asking.
My background is logistics in the movie industry.
Okay.
I've worked on probably about over 200 movies in
Oh, really?
Hollywood.
Wow.
Yeah. As the Australian film industry was developing with tax credits and stuff like that, what we did was we opened up an office, the company I work for.
Okay.
Opened up an office here in LA to bring Hollywood to Australia.
Okay.
And they could make a summer movie, but winter time here.
Sure.
Because of the reverse seasons.
Right.
And they would always get a bonus with their tax dollar and also their exchange rate.
Okay.
So they could really make a much cheaper movie there in Australia. And I was very fortunate enough to work on some of Hollywood's biggest movies. I can't say necessarily successful, but I can say in terms of budget movies.
Most expensive movie?
Most expensive movies?
Waterworld?
Well, I worked on, it was funny, I worked in Waterworld. That was in, I think, 1996, and that was in the big island of Hawaii.
Yes, no utes.
And I remember I got this phone call saying we have to move water. And I go, what do you mean you need to move water? And they went to one of these places like a Costco, and we just loaded up containers and containers of those big jug waters.
Yeah.
But yes, I worked on the set there in Hawaii. I worked on a lot of movies, a lot of car movies.
Okay.
Shipped a lot of cars around the world.
Okay.
Did you do one with Shelby cars? Didn't I find some Shelbys for you? Didn't I make the connection on some Shelbys? It was some death race.
You were happy
thing.
to get us an introduction, and we worked on.
It's like a death race movie.
It was actually, I think, Death Race number 2, and we shipped
47.
that car to South Africa.
Really?
That's right.
And we shipped. The problem is a lot of those cars look good on the screen, but they're literally they're put together they're pasted together.
Yeah, people don't understand that movie cars don't look like these cars.
No,
not at all.
Not the hero cars.
Right. Right.
But I remember I was working on this movie in Germany, and I got this call from Ford Motor Company and saying, we've just given some vehicles to this company in Germany for product placement. So it was the new Jag, and they had the new Lincoln.
What year are you talking about?
It was when they brought out the X. It was when Ford took over Jag. It was a few years after the XK8.
Okay.
And they had 12 and a half cars, right? Because 12 of them were set, and the other half was the one they push around.
Carved up.
And so I said, well, what's the problem? They said, well, the problem is they've literally leaned the cars. The guy who is running the warehouse hasn't paid his bill.
Oh no.
And so I have to fly to Germany, and I don't know what this warehouse was. It was right next to the river. And I said, I want to talk to the owner. And he says, well, the owner's in Ireland. And the guy says, I speak German, I don't speak a lot of English. So I said, what I'll do is this. Get me the guy on the phone. And I get the guy on the phone. He says, Irish guy. I said, oh, Irish and Australians, we love each other. He says, I'll come down. Yeah. So he flew down from Ireland, and we were talking there. And he said, we made a deal. And it was 50,000 euros cash.
Oh.
Right. And remember one of the last scenes of Risky Business where he's buying back his stuff? That's exactly what it was. I am there on behalf of the company, and I'm literally buying cars back. Right.
Wow.
And my agent that I had there on the ground went to the bank and got $50,000 worth of cash, and I'm counting it on his desk. Right. And
wow.
Here's 1,000, here's another 1,000. And so they were in a hurry to get it out. So what happens is they move the cars, and for 2 years they sat in some other warehouse.
Wow.
Yeah.
So there's, working
and
on
people
the
wonder
movies.
why movies cost so much, and there's one of the reasons why.
Hurry up and wait.
Yeah. It's one of those things you remember, but you sort of have to scratch and, is this real?
Yeah. So what were some of the big car movies you worked on?
Did some Fast and Furious.
Yeah.
We had Dennis McCarthy on. Did you know Dennis?
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah, Dennis. I went over to a shop. A friend of mine.
Good bloke.
Yeah. I wouldn't have called him that, but anyway.
Well, he hasn't done anything wrong to me yet.
That's good. So you worked on which Fast and Furious did you work on?
Worked on a few of them, but not everyone, because I know that you had a colleague there that was involved with one of the gentlemen that obviously passed away.
Which one are we talking about?
Paul.
Paul Walker.
Paul Walker.
Yeah, I knew.
One of your colleagues there.
Yeah, Roger was my next door neighbor. Roger, the guy who drove the Porsche.
Oh, okay.
He was my next door
GT.
neighbor.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
So we worked on 1 and 2, and then some of them bounced. And I remember some of the cars came up for sale, and they were on Ventura Boulevard in Studio City at a car place.
Yeah.
And I said to the guy, how much are you selling these for? And he goes, he came up with some number, and I said to him, you have all the paperwork, right? Because these are all right-hand drive cars.
Okay.
And they're not US compliance. He says, well, you have to buy them without the paperwork. And I said, that's because they're supposed to be either crushed or exported.
Yeah, that's right.
And they were like the Lancers.
They're not supposed to be here anymore. Yeah.
No, well, they're supposed to be here for 12 months, and then they didn't do their paperwork right. But
Wow.
Fast and Furious is a good movie. Death Race, also the remake of the Steve McQueen movie.
The Getaway?
The Getaway.
That was
not
great
the Getaway, was the one we had the Mustang.
Bullet.
Oh, Bullet.
Bullet, yeah,
Well,
Bullet.
they're redoing
Okay.
it right now, right?
They're always doing it every 10 years. Yeah, it's,
Did they redo it in the past?
I wasn't aware of that.
yes, we did it a few years back.
Well, there's a new one, and it's got Bradley
what's-
Cooper's in it. That's coming up. That's one they're still working on.
A few moved a lot of cars for launches of cars that are
Okay.
coming out. Work with Fisker when they were bringing out their cars.
Okay.
That was very interesting because they would use the same cars every year for 3 years, but they would change the color.
Okay. That sounds familiar.
Yeah, change the
Familiar
colour.
story.
So we did a lot of did some really cool stuff. We did this Range Rover, launching for Range Rover, and we had to get it up on the top of the volcano in Hawaii. And so when they were driving, they could see all the lava, which was real lava, wasn't
Yeah,
superimposed.
yeah.
And that was
Wow.
still when it was with the Ford Motor Company. And we flew that over. We
Really?
flew that. Yeah, a lot of
'Cause
times
you
we
do a
flew.
lot of shipping. I mean, you do shipping just in general, like you need to move cars and such.
Yeah,
for-
I think cars I
individuals.
like because it's a hobby.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm shipping widgets, I'll
not so much
I'll
fun.
probably fall asleep before I finish the paperwork.
Well, you do the PPE stuff too. You do the masks, and that's one of the things you do as a
Yeah.
business now, right? You're doing
I'm doing some stuff
gloves
for the
and
government.
masks and that kind of thing. But so, I mean, that was big a couple of years ago,
Oh,
and
yeah,
it's probably still
yeah.
decently big today.
Well, I think that'll go through its waves.
yeah,
I think it
I'm
goes
sure.
through its waves.
So there's probably some disasters that have happened in shipping. Does that happen every once in a while?
I don't think disasters. I think we were just talking to the gents here about when you make a movie, you can make a movie that's, let's say you make a 2-hour movie.
Mm-hmm.
Like when I worked on Castaway, the movie was probably for 2 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right? So the situations may change with weather, somebody gets sick, or there's a problem with something on the set. But in terms of logistics, never had really any problems.
That's good.
I will tell you I've had challenges.
Yeah.
I worked in the Amazon on a very, very large movie.
Oh.
And it was a stage where a very young, pretty actress who is well known today was not well known there, Jennifer Lopez.
Yeah.
And I worked on that movie. It was called Anaconda. And the biggest challenge for them was that they went to film and then the Amazon dried up. So they had to come back 6 months later. And so they hired me to go down there and get all the gear.
With the
But
snake wrangler.
it was crazy. Because I don't know if you've ever been to the Amazon, but it's
No.
true. Everything's bigger in the Amazon.
Oh, boy.
Just the bones on the fish are like beef bones.
Nice.
And we worked at this worked out of this hotel, and I knew that if you stayed there for more than 1 week, pig's ears were on the buffet on Friday. So you were there the next Friday, there'd be pig's ears again. But that was a challenge because we didn't know what they shipped in. And what happened with the South Americans, and this was in Manaus, Brazil, is that anything you leave there, you have to pay for, even if you give it away.
Really?
Really?
You have to give it. You can't just give it away because you have to pay for it. Everything's money. So that was a challenge.
Yeah.
And that was 2 weeks, literally 2 weeks in the Amazon.
Wow. Wow.
But that was a challenge. But that was also a good challenge because
Yeah.
we knew we could do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Speed 2, that was a challenge too. Again, didn't know what they shipped in and had to ship back. And I remember I think it was the 24th of December, And my
So Christmas Eve.
It was
Wow.
Christmas Eve, and I got a phone call saying we need to move this huge winch to St. Martin in the Caribbean because we need to pull the prop ship with the winch. And I said, well, how much does it weigh? And they said, well, we don't know if it weighs 10,000 pounds, if that includes the machinery and the cable, or we don't know, right?
Johnny
And-
Depp's head.
So we hired a C-130 aircraft.
Wow.
But
Okay.
it was commercialized, so
Okay.
it had a more solidified flooring.
Okay.
And we put it in there, and it was really, really good. And I didn't go that time. I normally go, and I sent one of my guys there. And when it arrived, the transportation guy said, "How was the flight?" And the answer from the pilot was, "We didn't even know if we were even going to get up in the air because we couldn't weigh the stuff."
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Ooh, that's living dangerously.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
living dangerously.
Yeah.
Wow.
But another success story from a logistics point of view, maybe not so much from the box office point of view.
Yeah.
Well,
But
you can't
that's all
fix-
the behind the scenes stuff that is
Yeah.
critical. Without that, movie doesn't happen, right? Yeah.
Exactly.
How'd you get into that, Jeff? How did you end up in the shipping business? You said,
Well, my father was in the shipping business in the 50s.
Okay.
And in the old days, I don't know what it was like here, but when you need to make an international phone call, you had to book it. It was called a cable. And there was no things called faxes and emails. It was a telex machine.
Yeah.
Remember the telex machines?
Yeah.
Yes,
You know,
I do.
typing and it would jump up and jump out and jump up and jump down. Anyway, so what happened was I would go into the office on Saturday with him. And when one of the ships came in, he would take me down to one of the ships, and he was a senior person in the shipping company. So he would take me down there, more me than my brother. And we would go down there, and my dad'd say, "Let's go to the galley. Every time I come here, I have to have a roast beef sandwich." And so they'd serve me roast beef, and they'd serve me this drink called 7-Up. What the hell, 7-Up? We'd never heard of 7-Up.
no
I'd never
Vegemite
heard
on
before,
there?
yeah.
We had Schweppes in Australia.
Okay.
And our
Sure.
lemonade is not lemon juice. Lemonade is like 7-Up to us.
Sure.
Yeah.
And so there was the roast beef sandwich, and of course the 7-Up, and of course I like that. I like going on the gangways and
Sure.
seeing the ships. So I got into that from my father.
Your dad, yeah.
But I worked for an American company. I worked for an American company doing a lot of stuff for the military,
Okay.
used aircraft and stuff like that.
Oh, okay.
And that eventually brought me over to the US.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, what kind of cars, when you were young, what were you driving? What were you working on?
So.
Uh-oh, doesn't sound good.
So my first car was this white. Remember the Ford Cortinas?
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
1998 cc's. It was 2 litre. We routed off to 2 litre. Automatic. I didn't know how to drive manual.
Sure.
Bucket seats, which were vinyl. So the humidity in Australia, like Florida.
yeah.
You turn the car on the summer and you slip off the seat. Bench in the back. Like a lot of kids my age, put the 2-way radio in with the CB,
CB,
Okay.
and all that sort of
sure.
stuff, and I put a speaker in the front so I could talk to people while I was driving along, and all that sort of stuff. And then I went out. I sold that car, and I bought myself this little Honda. It was called a coupe or coupe. We call it coupe 7, and it was a high performance Honda. It was 110 horsepower. And it came in the 7 or the 9. The 9 came with 4 carburetors, 1 carburetor per cylinder.
Wow.
But this thing
Wow.
would rev.
Yeah.
You remember the old S800s and the S600? It's like that,
Yeah.
right? Those
Yeah.
type of cars.
Yep.
Anyway, so that was like buttercup yellow. You could see that thing coming for miles around.
So we'd like to thank our sponsor, ARP and ARP-bolts.com. And we all 3 build cars. We all work on
Yeah.
this stuff. And
I tinker.
You tinker.
I tinker.
Yes, we all build.
Yeah, and you know what? It's kind of a really cool multiple purpose fastener for me because there's all the science and all the technology, which is bottomless. Trust me. Unbelievable amount of research that they put into these things.
Absolutely.
And on top of it, you get them out of the package, and they're absolutely beautiful. Which I've joked before, it's like jewelry for your car. And
They're
when
pre-oiled.
we're building when we're building a high end car, there isn't anything else going on it. It's part of the criteria for me to have them lining the engine bay, not just on the engine, everywhere.
Yeah.
So you get all the strength, the durability, the reliability, and fantastic good looks.
Sure.
Kind of like Geoff here.
And without peer. Without peer.
And
Anybody else
you know what?
Or pairs.
Without peer, there's nobody else
Correct.
that does what
That
they
is,
do.
it is. So check them out at arp-bolts.com, and they can help you out.
What was your first muscle car or performance car?
My first muscle car performance car was here in the US.
Was it?
I bought a 67 convertible Pontiac with the rally hood from an estate.
Okay.
And it was a really nice blue.
Le Mans.
And I
So
heard
like,
you,
like a Tempest?
well, very similar, but I heard you saying about the white interior, and it had the white interior, and I bought that for my wife. And it's too noisy, right? So I eventually sold that, and of course, now I've got the 2006 Ford GT,
Okay.
which I literally just keep on a hoist, and
Yeah.
I've had a few Ford GTs, had a lot of Corvettes. The thing is, every car has a different story.
Sure.
Right? And I remember there was a car show at Pep Boys up in Burbank. It's been going for years, and this guy turns up in this old jalopy, and he's got this grill, and he's got this tree root growing out of the grill, and he's got this windshield, and it's just completely smashed, right? But he's got a story to tell.
Yeah, I'm sure it has
Right?
a story.
it
that
wouldn't-
has to have a story.
It wouldn't
yeah.
pass, right?
Hit a
Right.
Hit a kangaroo?
I don't know what he hit. I don't think it was a tail. I think it was a root.
Okay.
But I think what he did is he picked up he built this car. I think he picked up the grill, probably from, somebody dumped the car and something grew. So, every car, I always tell people, every car has a story, whether it's from the first time, you made nookie in the back of your car with your girlfriend, or the song that was playing, right? Or the song that was playing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Sure, the
Or
music.
the
Yeah.
first time you took out a date. And I don't care how good a car is. It doesn't have to be the best car. But if you can tell a story,
Oh, yeah.
You bet.
Yep.
and be proud of telling the story,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter what you have. Right?
Sure.
You were talking
Yeah.
about the fact you were restoring an 86 Bronco with your son. How did that all happen about?
So he wanted a Bronco to play with. I said, no problems. And we it came with no interior. It came with some interior, but no door skins. And
Is that the O.J. Simpson style Bronco?
No, that wasn't. It was a blue one. Maybe OJ painted.
No, but I mean
I don't know.
that body style. Is that
It was an
body style?
86. Yeah,
86.
very
Yeah.
similar.
Yeah,
Similar. Yeah.
And what happened was he decided with his mate, an older guy, my son at the time was about 17, and the deal was, okay, this needs to be completed before you go to college, because otherwise I know what's going to happen. It's going to sit in the garage, and guess who's going to be responsible for it?
Right.
Yeah.
So one day, it's late at night, and I go to get something out of the car, and all of a sudden I slip over. And I go, what the hell is that? And what he had done is he'd taken the whole engine part out, and all the lubrication had dripped all the way underneath the car, all the way to the entrance. And I'm going like, what the, what?
Yeah.
And next morning I go, what are you doing? Oh, we're repairing the car. And of course, goes through the high school, goes to college, and it's sitting there. So I sent it away for about 12 months. I only got it back 2 days ago.
Yeah.
And I told him it's for sale. Look, I love the projects. I did I had a 55 Cadillac.
Nice.
Series 62 that I drove in the Rose Parade.
Okay.
Nice.
It was the lead car. And I had the privilege and honor to have Jana Carter was one of the people, Nuke Rockney III,
Really?
which of course
Wow.
never met his grandfather, and Dick Vermeil.
Okay.
And I'm not a big American football. I like, obviously rugby, but we drove that in the Rose Parade. But what happened was they put it on a trickle the night before. They didn't put it on a 12 volt. They put it on a 6.
Uh-oh.
And so guess what?
Yeah.
The car didn't drive. And so I don't know about you, but being towed for 4 miles,
Oh.
right, with literally no power steering,
That's not a
after
lot
that,
of
I
fun.
could pump 300 pounds above my head
No
by
kidding.
turning that thing, because that
No
thing is
kidding.
like a tank.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Beast.
Yeah.
But that car was
Beautiful cars,
a
though.
classic.
Yeah,
Yeah.
beautiful cars.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a
Absolutely.
beautiful, beautiful blue, and
Yeah.
I took all the chrome off, and I got the book and looked at the parts, and and the car was a beauty. I mean, obviously, it got picked for the Rose Parade.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I would do that again. and you know what? I love my son, but I don't think I want any more boys. Thank goodness,
There you
because this car. I mean, he tore this car apart.
Yeah.
But good on him. It's not like it's an expensive car.
Yeah.
But he was proud of that.
Yeah.
Dad, I can fix that. I
Yeah,
can fix
I
that.
can
I said,
fix
yeah,
that.
last time you told me that, right? I ended up sending it out to go and get fixed.
I used to do that all the time when I'd crash or hurt my mom's car. I'd say, "This is what I did. I can fix it. I can fix it, Mom."
Yeah, exactly.
Wasn't
Lick it like this, and it'll definitely, the scratch will go out when you lick it like that, right?
Wasn't that the Fast Times at Ridgemont High when they crash the Camaro and the guy says is he like a TV repairman or something, and he goes my dad's got a cool set of tools, and I go, we'll fix it.
We'll
They
fix it.
completely annihilate the Camaro. Nope, not going to happen. Not going to happen in the garage.
Yeah, but there's just another story of my experience of running around, taking all the chrome off, running to the chrome store, getting all the stuff done. And I don't think when you restore a car like that, you almost really have no choice on a budget, because you can't have old chrome with new chrome.
Right. No.
And if you order something new, it's not going to look the same as the old and the classic if it's it's not OEM.
And there was a ton of chrome in those cars. Ooh.
That thing had a lot of chrome. That thing had power windows, power seats. That was that was pretty rare.
Yeah.
And had a power top, which actually most of the time worked.
Yeah. Always good.
But if you don't run those cars,
Yes, they have to be operated.
I used to have like a little switch that if I put it in reverse, I put a fuel pump in there, because otherwise it was always dead.
Yeah.
Always dead.
Yeah.
But that was a fine car. That's probably I had a 32, one of those high boys.
Okay.
The problem is I sort of swapped it out. And I really wasn't. The car looked really, really good, but the problem was the exhaust pipes on the side.
Yeah.
Had to be careful you didn't, burn your legs.
Yeah.
Like Cobras.
So
Same
so
idea.
I sold that, and I was on the internet at like 3:00 in the morning, and I saw this '63 Corvette convertible.
Oh.
And it was ermine white.
Okay.
Ermine
Yeah.
white.
Yeah.
Sure, I know it.
Yeah.
Sure.
But of course, I'm seeing the pictures, and I win the bid, and I get the car towed to my house. And what the guy had done, he'd taken all the logos off and had them gold plated.
Lovely.
So of course, then I have to get onto Corvette Central and get the book and order all
Right.
the
Yeah,
stuff.
just get
and
new
blah, blah,
ones. I wouldn't
Right.
even bother to plate them. But these days, and plating in LA is going to be like gone, I think, by 2035. I think they said
yes.
that's it. They're
Yeah.
done.
Well, I kept the logos, but the guy gold plated. I mean, he even gold plated the knobs
Really?
on the radio.
Yeah.
So it was a car that was fun for a little while. Nice car, nice car. And then I had another Corvette that I got from SEMA, and of course then I got the new one,
Sure.
right?
Okay.
And I basically bought the new one for sticker. COVID hit. They send you. Firstly, they sent you this cup holder. It's like a coffee cup. Say, your Corvette's coming, right? Oh, great! I got a coffee cup.
Great.
Right?
Where's my car?
So I get the call from downtown LA, and I go and pick up the car, and it's got all the plastics on the seat. I said, leave everything on there.
Yeah.
So I
Do
have
you still
it.
have it? Do you still have the car?
No, I don't. But what happens? I towed it back to my house.
Okay.
I put it up on the hoist.
Yeah.
Put the C7 cover on it, and it was okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was close, even though the contour is different. I stuck it up on eBay. Bang! The guy bought 10,000 over. I drove that car 1 mile.
There you
Wow.
go.
Just to turn it around. But this car was gorgeous. But I'd waited 2 years, and because
What
of
color
COVID,
was it? What color was it?
This car was like a gunmetal grey with like
Okay.
that baseball leather interior.
Okay.
My brother-in-law just took delivery of a Z06.
Yeah.
What
So-
year's that?
Brand new.
Oh, it's a phenomenal car.
Yeah, brand new. So he actually went to the plant, went through, got the tour and the whole bit.
Yeah.
But Yep. You just got to keep it between the lines. I worry. But
Yeah, I
anyway,
think they did
hopefully
a-
he'll be okay.
You know, I was at
It's a
the.
phenomenal car.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful car. I was at the car show a few years ago, the LA car show, and what had happened. That was just after the year when there was not a lot of cars. A lot of the companies weren't coming because they couldn't fly.
Yeah.
Right. So the show was actually quite small, and I normally go for press day. I can get around quicker and talk to all the pretty ladies. Not that I talk to anybody. To the pretty
No, he doesn't
ladies
talk to
serving
anybody.
the car, and then they had the new Corvette, and I said to the guy, can I sit inside? He goes, no, you can't sit inside it. I go, why not? Oh, you can't do this and this. I said, can I ask you a question? I said, I really, really like the car, but a lot of the switches are literally off the shelf. Why didn't they spend another $1,000? Because Porsche and Audi and Mercedes, they take parts from other cars, right? Just trim parts. It's no, it'll overprice the car. But I said, it's such a nice car. You're so much, dollar for dollar, it's the best car. But the buttons look very, very, very cheap.
They do. They don't look as nice as they
and I think a
probably
lot of
could
them
have.
are Camaros. But I think from a performance point of view,
Oh boy.
Yeah, pretty spectacular.
dollar for dollar,
Yeah.
and it's a nice looking car.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they did a really, really good job with that car.
Yeah.
Because I think the old styles were pretty, but I think they were getting tired.
They
And
were.
this looks
There's no
completely
question.
different.
It's a very different deal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got a knob story for you.
Hang on.
So I go.
Should we go off the air on this one?
That's right. So in 1986 or 7, Barris was running out of money.
Okay.
And he has a giant auction at Universal City, and he's got all his cars. I mean, there's a whole bunch of cars that are there, and he's moving them. So,
Okay.
so he's got a bunch of stuff. In fact, there was one deal where he had there was a car that had 4 Ford motors in it. It was called the Snake Pit. It had four motors in it.
Okay.
And I was thinking, you buy that for a decent price, and you sell the motors. They were all empty. They were they were empty 289s. So I was like,
Yeah.
okay.
That sounds like classic
Anyway,
Barris.
so anyway, there was this 1957 507 BMW, which is a very nice looking car. It's very sporty. It's it's a convertible. If you see one,
Elvis Presley had one.
I say, well, this one belonged to Ursula Andress.
That's right. She's the other one.
Okay. So she had this, but Barris really screwed it up. Bottom line, leopard skin interior.
Oh.
White leopard skin, and he it had Cobra drivetrain, which I thought was very cool. So at least that's what they call it. So it's probably another 289.
Right.
But anyway, so I saw this car and I'm going like, look at the interior, and each of the individual knobs. The knobs were white. And I like it, and it's my naive deal. I said, "Who stuck the gum on the end of the knobs?" Because that's for all my world. I thought it was like somebody just stuck gum on the, they chewed up a piece of gum and stuck it on the end of the knob. It's like, what the hell is that? And the guy who was the curator on that particular car goes, "Those are cameos of Ursula Andress in various poses." And I'm going like, you have got to be kidding me. Each one of those knobs was carved from ivory and
Really?
put on there. It's like,
Oh, my
I said,
God.
looks like
Wow.
gum. Looks like gum. It's like, so I said, look closer. It was like, oh, just so lovely. So
That was a beautiful
the 507.
Well, that was what the Z8 was really designed from, the
Yes.
modern Z8.
Yeah.
And I remember there was one up in Pebble Beach.
I'll show you a picture
And
of
it
it.
was-
It's actually a very nice
And
thing.
Elvis
Yeah.
was selling, when he was stationed in Europe,
Yeah.
he bought one and they were putting it up for auction.
Well, Barris really screwed this one up.
Yeah, and the problem is when you screw that up, they didn't make a lot. And
No.
And it was basically a competitor to the California Spider.
Was
The
it?
funny thing is that car at that particular time, they say the estimate was about $1 million. But if you look at the same year of the California Spider, it's probably $30 million.
Okay.
There you go.
Yeah.
Right, because it just was almost like the stepchild.
Yeah.
But but the lines on it were phenomenal. It just never got the market.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But people bastardize cars.
No.
Yeah, they do.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute.
They
Newsflash.
bastardize,
too?
but that's okay. That's okay if it's for a reason. If you want to do that, if you want to have, carpet with paw prints on it,
Yeah.
right, which you can probably get, then so be it.
pet store.
You go and get the carpet with the paw prints on it, right, and you show it off and you drive it to places, and when you valet
And hopefully someone appreciates it.
Exactly. Not me.
right?
Hey, I got a question, Geoff. Did you ever drive across Australia?
I've only ever driven across the US.
Okay.
And I saw
But you didn't go to, like,
I saw no
Air-
kangaroos when I drove across the US.
Then you go to like Ayers Rock, because I mean, Australia has some of the weirdest animals and some of the most dangerous animals. And I always thought, because I've had, like Motor Trend did a deal where they drove across, they drive through Ayers Rock and they drive from like Sydney to Perth, that kind of thing. But you never did that, huh?
No, it's, if you look at the distance between Sydney and Perth, it's very similar to LA and New York.
Yeah, it's a long ways.
The problem is most of the population in Australia is surrounded around the
They're
coast.
On the coast, right.
And so, they have this rock in the middle. I think it's called Ayers Rock.
It is. Yes.
I've never been there before. I don't think it's going anywhere.
No, my mother went
Probably
there.
not.
I was
But they changed the rules. It's an Aboriginal, very sacred to the Aboriginals, which I respect the Aboriginals as
wasn't
people
Australia
there.
very flat for the most part, except for this kind of peak in the middle?
I believe the desert is quite flat. So what they do is they run road trains across country.
I've seen pictures
So like
of them.
semis after semis after semis.
Yeah.
And they run that, and then they have the Indian Pacific, which is across the Indian Ocean to the Pacific Ocean. So
Okay.
you've got Perth on the Indian and Sydney on the Pacific. I think my grandfather might have driven across there.
Really?
Yeah, because they owned a gold mine back in the early 20s. I'm still looking for the gold and the inheritance. I haven't found it yet.
found it yet.
But I believe he drove across. And I don't know how many days it took them, but probably now, probably 3 and change.
In the 20s, it would have been a real
Well, probably
adventure.
probably more, because you can do LA to New York in probably 4 if
Yeah.
you have
Yeah.
2. It's
Yeah.
Texas is the hardest.
Yes.
That's really really
Did you
hard.
ever hear Brock Yates' comment about driving across Texas?
No.
It's not a hard job, it's a career.
But I think that some people think about all these animals in Australia. You guys, when you put the big bar on the front,
Yes.
we call that the rhubarb.
Rhubarb.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
Rhubarb,
You should
right.
explain that, because kangaroos are big.
Well,
They're
kangaroos are
heavy.
not. They're big. I mean, a big one could be over 7 foot.
Yeah.
But they are very muscular.
Yes.
So you think about something like that hitting it, it'll write the whole car off.
Yeah.
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 Like similar to a deer, but in
Yes.
some ways a lot stronger. So we have the big reds, we have the greys, and then we have the little guys called the wallabies. They're cute, and then of course probably the 5 deadliest snakes. So if the first one doesn't get you and the second one doesn't get you, there's a few more to get you.
And they don't have rattles to let you know they're there.
Well, if you did a list, rattles are about 50 on the list of dangerous ones, right?
Yes, they are.
And the Australian ones,
Are at the top.
yeah, and the ones that have got an Australian accent are worse, right? And then you've got the sharks, right? And if the sharks don't get you, the crocodiles will.
How about the spiders?
Wow.
And if the crocodiles don't get you, the alligators will get you.
Sounds like a great place.
The spiders will come after you.
They come after you.
Wow.
They see you and they
Wow.
will come after. What do they call it? A hunter?
No, it's called the funnel-web spider.
So I actually have a kangaroo story that involves
go
Rick
ahead.
Dobberton.
Fine.
So remember the surface orbiter that he built?
Well, Rick Dobberton is a
So
pro
Rick
street guy.
Dobberton is a pro
Yes.
street guy. So when Cam and I were editors of the magazines, Pro Street was big. So giant motors, giant tires in the back. In America for like 20 years, it was a big deal. And so he had built several cars, went to Australia to do in the wintertime to do one of the shows in Australia in the summertime. So he was down there with his wife, and
I went to
Clowning-
the Summer Nats too.
Did you?
Yeah, sure did. But
And-
go ahead.
and,
Please tell your story.
clowning around with this kangaroo.
Oh boy.
And which was not a good thing to do, and so his wife is filming this, and the kangaroo just decked him. and knocked him down and knocked him out. So they put that video on America's Funniest
So is that
Video.
the one that
that was the one? So they
I know
won the
exactly-
contest.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
And then that built the Surface Orbiter. That was the money that they
There you
used
go.
to build the Surface Orbiter. And the Surface Orbiter, you should look it up. It's this giant stainless steel tank. It was a milk tank, and he turned it into a amphibious vehicle. So it had 4 wheels on it, and then put a prop in the back with a 454. No, it was a diesel engine.
He
I
didn't
think
go
it was
look
a
at the
diesel engine.
Titanic or anything, did he?
No. Well, and so it was more or less a submarine, but it wouldn't go under the water, but it was just barely above.
Like an
So-
amphibicar.
Yeah. So 2/3 of it were underwater, and it's just insane. He showed me photos of that car going through because he put it through the locks on the Panama Canal.
Oh, wow.
Just wanted to do it.
Wow.
And then so he told me this one story that Car and Driver actually tested it. They put it in a lake and drove it around for a while. And his plan, the original plan with this Surface Orbiter, was to circumnavigate the globe. And his task was the hardest one was going to be across like Greenland in that area in the North Sea, which is extremely dangerous.
Yeah.
And I said, Rick, you won't survive that. And he goes, well, this thing won't capsize. You can turn it upside down, and it's all the way to the bottom.
I think I've heard similar stories of that on ships.
Oh boy, yeah, unsinkable, right? It's like, no, dude. What if you lose power? Well, and so anyway, that never happened. But he actually brought it down the street down here to our offices and brought it out in front and drove around. Crazy stuff. So,
Wow.
But the best story was decided to take it to, I forget what South American country. I don't think it was Panama, because he went through the Panama Canal and then into the bay, or the below America, right? What's the sea there?
You're talking about Gulf?
The Gulf of Mexico. Gulf of Mexico.
Yeah.
Landed on this South American country with an American flag stuck on the back of it.
Oh,
Right?
boy.
Was it
And he was
Venezuela?
immediately arrested because they thought America was invading their country. Yeah.
Well, it was
And
probably international. It wasn't in international waters anymore.
yeah, he was on their shores, and that took several days to get that all
He
straight.
showed him the video of being punched out by a kangaroo, and they let him go.
Yeah. Oh, you're that guy.
My experience with
So-
kangaroos as an adult here in America. So when I was in the movie business, we moved a lot of stuff, and one of the things we actually did move a lot of was animals.
Okay.
That real animals that you would see, and at that particular time, I had a colleague of mine who was just out at Castaic Lake, and he had a big reserve out there, and he specialised in animals for the movies and TV. And so I went out to his place. We became quite friends, and he went out to his place. And he said, "Oh, I have a kangaroo," and I go, "You got a kangaroo?" So fast forward about a year or so later, there was a big film exhibition. Every year they'd have a big film exhibition, and it was going to be at the Hilton Hotel in Burbank, right next to the airport. And I said to him, "I'm doing some work for the Australian Film Commission. Can I borrow the kangaroo?" So he says, "Yeah, no problems. You can borrow the kangaroo. No problems at all. As we say, no worries, mate. We'll just borrow the kangaroo.
No worries, mate.
Where do I park the kangaroo?" So that particular day, it was raining, it was thundering, it was really, really bad weather. So they called me and said, "Oh, the kangaroo's here," right? Well, the person who was bringing the kangaroo, So we go out there, and the kangaroo's looking around, take it out of the cage, and I'm walking through the exhibit hall of the Hilton, and all of a sudden, I think the kangaroo put its head up and saw the Australian Film Commission and thought it was back in Australia, and it went wild. It went crazy. And it had this collar on, like a dog collar, and I'm literally holding this thing,
Yeah.
and you talk about how strong these things
They
are. When
are.
they get on their back legs.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
And this wasn't a huge one. This one's pulling me, and I'm pulling it this way. Have you ever tried to move a donkey?
Yeah, nah, it doesn't work.
It's just
No.
a horse is fine,
Yep.
and this thing's going back, and people are freaking out now, and it's now thundering, and this thing's going crazy. So I was asked politely next year, do not bring the kangaroo. Bring some snakes, poisonous. We don't care. Don't bring the kangaroo.
Don't they roll back on their tail and kick you?
Yeah.
Yes, well that's it. The kangaroo is a balance. Now growing up in Australia, you couldn't eat kangaroo. They're actually a pest.
Yes.
There's more kangaroos. They call them rodents, right?
Yes.
Big ones.
and you couldn't eat kangaroo, but now you can.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's quite good. It's quite good meat.
Well, isn't it tough? I mean, because
It's not tough.
It's because they're so muscular.
The only problem about eating kangaroo when it's on its plate, it's jumping all over the place. So you've got to get your fork somewhere in there and get it, right? But yeah,
Step right into that one,
You
didn't
sure
you?
did.
Step right into that
It's
one.
actually very high in iron. It's actually,
It is.
you know what they say, it puts a bounce in your step. How's that sound?
Yikes. Yes.
Okay, on that note,
That's it. That's it.
hey, thanks for coming, Jeff. This is
Jeff
a
with a
great,
J.
Yes, Jeff with a G.
That's it.
Yes, very much so. So we want to thank the Petersen Museum people here. I mean, this is a fantastic place.
Yep.
I'm thinking about moving in. Frankly, this is really
Hard
nice.
floors, who cares?
Oh boy, and also our friends at arp-bolts.com for helping us out with this. And if you like what you see here, click the button, ring the bell, do all that good stuff, and we'll keep telling you stories.